Good morning. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. We're starting a new design today. If you're starting, painting designs, crafts, whatever for Christmas, and you're into the farmhouse style of designs, you're going to like this. So let's get started. I'm going to take some light buttermilk and apply it to the background using my makeup sponge. And I'm going to kind of do it sporadically because I don't really want great coverage because I am going to make this look pretty rustic when it's all said and done. So what I like to do is just pounce it on. And because I use wood, you're going to see the grain of the wood. One thing I do try and do, and I'm kind of pouncing a little bit harder than I normally do, and I don't know why, is try and get the sponge marks out. Because that will show up, so sometimes you can sand them out, but sometimes no. So trying to do even pressure when using your sponge, you should try and do that. At least that's what I try and do. I don't like to use a roller for this because I am going for a very vintage, primitive, antique feel when it's all said and done. And I feel that if I was to use a roller, I would probably get more paint on than really what I want. So I prefer to go this route. I mean, you could try and use a sponge. But I would probably put the paint on sparingly. Just my opinion. Now, you don't have to do the antiquing on this. You can leave it all a solid color, the background. It has to be a personal preference. I'm really digging the very rustic, primitive, vintage type of outcome that I'm getting, so... And this is what works for me, so I'm just sticking with what works for me. Let's see, the paint's not dry over here yet, and it's kind of hard to tell in the camera, but there's definitely some sponge marks. And I actually put too much paint out, but... I'm not worried about the score lines, even with the lines going across to simulate shiplap. I'll dig them out. But kind of what I like to do is when I load up my sponge, I kind of go in an area that I know I'm covering up with something else. That way the majority of the paint kind of goes in that area. But I'm also too tapping the paint off back on to my plate as well. Now, like I said, I can see sponge marks. You probably can't see it very well, but there's like sponge marks in here and right in here. So I'm gonna try and even that up a little bit, get rid of those. I'm putting hardly any paint on my sponge and just trying to get rid of that. And if by chance I can't, I'll try my best to get rid of it when I sand. So and it's hard to try and keep even pressure. Okay, I'll let that dry really, really good and revisit that in a few minutes, see what how it's drying. I'm gonna go ahead and paint this barn. And I think that I'm gonna do the antiquing type effect on everything here. All the design elements, all the lettering. So I'm gonna use Country Red. And I'm actually gonna do some shading and highlighting as well. And see how that goes. And you definitely, I'm putting the red, excuse me, over where these doors go because the frame, you'll be able to see the barn. So I want to make sure that's covered. I do want to make sure I get a decent coat of red on here. I will go back and do some sanding, but I don't want it too sparse, I don't think. How you do things just has to be a personal preference. How much shading, how much highlighting, how much paint you put on. And it is warm up in my room today. Holy smokes. Wow, I got the fan going. Whew. I don't know. It is humid out. I'm going to go ahead and paint this bow as well, even though it's going to be red upon red, so... And I haven't decided what color I want my letters. They're either going to be green or red. There's going to be about 3, 4 colors on here. Tops. Red, green, a little bit of brown, some white, maybe even some gray. I'll figure it out as I go. I think I'll put a little bit more on there. And I did change my sticky board. All right. Let's see. Honestly, you can't really see the sponge marks. So, I'm going to sand this. I actually need to change my sandpaper because I just got done sanding something black. So I don't want that black getting on there. I got these little hand sanders off of Amazon. They're pretty inexpensive. And all you do is change out the sandpaper and you're good to go. And I'm using a 600 grit first. And then I'm even going to change this other one because it's got black on it as well. And the grit on that is 80, I believe. I will tell you, you have to be careful using it because it will, 1, scratch your surface. And 2, it can really tear up your wood. So you want to be gentle with it. And I will sand over my surface today. Let me just hit this real quick again. Just in certain areas. I don't make a habit of sanding over my surface, but I kind of want to show you exactly what I do if you want to try and recreate the result that I'm going to get. So what I like to do is take the 600 and I like to just go with the grain of the wood. I use wood. I don't know how this is going to work with MDF. I don't know if you'll be able to get the same effect. So I don't know. But I go with the grain and I just lightly go back and forth. And what I'm trying to do is just get off the high spots. And then I kind of just like run my hand over it, you know, and see how smooth it is. And then what I like to do is then I like to go around the corners, taking off the paint. And up top. And try and remove the paint. And it's hard to tell because, you know, I'm using wood. The wood's light. This paint is light. So it's kind of hard to see in the camera how much paint I'm really taking off. And I am going to go back and use that other sander. But I have to be like really, really careful, because I know from past experience it will scratch. And I'm going to look into getting different grits of sandpaper. There's got to be a happy medium out there. So I just kind of like to wipe off my surface to kind of see where I'm at. And I'm going to lightly go in the corners to try and take off. Whoops, wrong one. And going with the grain of wood, take off. That paint. And I'm going down the sides and taking off paint as well. But I'm being gentle because I don't really want a whole lot of scratch marks. I mean, you're gonna get them, you just can't help it. I also too try and make sure I take off way more paint in the corner, and you'll see once I get that other stuff put on, it'll just really darken up the edges and the corners. But just make sure you can see I'm going back and forth because I'm trying to keep, if I get the scratch marks, it's going to be like with the grain of the wood and not be something crazy. Because once I put that stuff on, you will definitely, it just accentuates taking off this paint. And you can even lightly, go over areas. But just, like I said, be careful because this grit, it will scratch. And then if I feel like I press too hard in some areas, I go back with my other one and I kind of smooth it out. And I just keep doing this till I actually kind of get the look I'm after. I know what I'm after. It just, it has to be a personal preference. You definitely want to wipe up your area because we will be doing some painting. The last thing you want is that dust getting in your paint. I just use a paper towel or a napkin. If you have a tack cloth, that's a bonus. And then I'm just going to dig out my score marks. And I'm just lightly pressing. And especially where these letters are, because it could catch on the letter and throw it off. and then you're going to end up with a big scratch that you will definitely see. All right, we'll see how that is. And I'll know better once I start putting this stuff on. So for bigger areas like this, I like to use just part of a t-shirt. And I do use a sponge as well, but I like to use a t-shirt. And what we're using is Kills Sealing Wax. It's a dark wax. And I'll start off by just dipping my sponge in. And as you can see, it's getting more on the ends. So I'm just going to go over to my napkin and just tap it off. And I'm just going to kind of go around the edges first. To darken them up. And I'm just lightly tapping. And just kind of building up that color along the edges. Now also too, you're going to want to have a wet wipe available as well, because this stuff goes on pretty dark, and it might end up being darker than what you want. So the way to fix that, excuse me, is to wipe it off with a wet wipe. Hey, Lori. Oh, have fun with that. You too. And then I just lightly go across. Now I got way more on there than really what I wanted. But I kind of rub it into the wood and go in with the grain. It's easier to add than remove, so kind of keep that in mind as you're applying this. And I think I've got it on there dark enough. I can always go back and apply more. So I'm going to use my wet wipe, and you want to be careful when rubbing this because you can rub the paint off. And I just go back and forth lightly to calm this down a little bit. And here's the deal too. If you can't get enough of it off to suit you, what I would recommend doing is then getting maybe a chippy brush and dry brushing more light buttermilk on it. That's what I would do. But like I said, it just has to be a personal preference. I know what I'm after. I want, when it's all said and done, this board to look very weathered, like it has seen better days. So that's the look I'm going for. And as you can see on the sides, it's a lot darker and you can actually see that wood. I mean, this is the color of the wood, but you can't tell that by the sides. And yes, there are darker areas, and because I am using wood, this wax has got into the grain because, one, it's wood. Two, I didn't put a real heavy coat of light buttermilk on the background, and I did that with intent. So we'll let this dry really, really good. Like I said, I'm sure I could probably get more off. I don't really want to, but I want to just, you got to be careful, because if I start pressing really, really hard, it will take that paint off. Do I think that'll end up damaging the whole thing? No, because it's going to give you that really rustic old feel. So that just is going to add more character. But I just rather be a little bit more cautious. And like I said, if this isn't like ends up being the color you want, what I recommend doing is getting a chippy brush or some type of stencil brush, anything that you know, something rough, like a rough style brush. Like here's a cruddy stencil brush, and dipping it in some light buttermilk, rubbing it off really good onto a paper towel, and then just going like this. And that's going to put lines in it if you're looking for something lighter. And just, you know, play around with it. And if you feel like you got a little bit too dark, then go back and put some more of this wax on, but just put it on sparingly. So we'll cover this up for now. I'll set this aside. And we'll work on this. Like I said, I want to do some shading. I don't know, once I put this antique and stuff on, what it'll look like. You know, the shading, I don't know if you'll be able to tell anything. But, so this is kind of like a test for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my marks, because I want to shade underneath this roof line. And I'm going to shade. I'll probably just dry brush, but I kind of want to mark like how far I go. So I'm going to start like right about in here and go about here. I'll just flip this over instead of taking the other one off. Right about here, start up in here. Now I think I'm gonna float my shading, and then where those trees are gonna go, I think what I'll do is I'll actually dry brush. I haven't floated in so long. I've just been doing this technique, and so it's been a while. So I'm just going to take some black plum. It's not going to take much. And I really want to blend my paint. See, and I've got that debris everywhere. I even have it in my water. That's why I don't sand over my surface. I'll probably have to go over this a couple times to get that darkness that I'm after. I'm going to have to probably empty my water, because I have that dust, and that's not a good thing. That is not going to help my floating at all. So I mean, I don't think I'm gonna shade around where this door is gonna be. I think, though, what I might try and do. No, I'm not gonna do it. I was gonna shade inside. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just asking for problems, I think. That's just gonna be too much. So I'll just allow that wax to do the shading for me. And I might have to take a bigger brush. So, because I want that to be a little bit bigger than that. I really made a mistake by sanding over my surface. I did that for just to show you, but I wouldn't do that again. So I'm just gonna kind of just go back and forth, do it, you know, just lightly, trying to get some of this color on. Pressing a little bit harder than I normally do, which is not a good thing. Try a wider brush. And see, the thing is, this roof line has a lot of twists and turns, so let that dry really good. So I think, let me see something. Now these trees actually have trunks on them, so I gotta kind of be careful. I'm just gonna use regular avocado. Even though I'm gluing trees over top, I'm just gonna paint all of them. That way, if by chance they don't get lined up, you won't be able to tell. And I'm actually gonna go around and paint the edges of the pine trees on the barn as well. And I'll take a brush and get next to the trunk. Because anyone can have an oops moment when gluing and not get things lined up. So I think I'd just rather be safe than sorry. Let's see if I can get... more black plum on that one side. I'm bouncing around today, which I don't usually do that. I like that a lot better, and I'll let that dry really good, and I might go back and hit the other side. And I think the wreath I'm going to actually paint light avocado, which is just a slight variance. It's nothing major. So Indiana lost last night. They were killing it. I don't know what happened. Disappointing. So the series is tied and they go back to Oklahoma. I'm not for sure when the game's on again. Hopefully not Sunday. And I'm still going to go and highlight these edges like I did the last time. I don't really want to sand the edges and get it down to the wood because I'm kind of afraid with them being small and pointed that I take a chance of busting the tips off. That one side's a little bit darker than what I wanted, but might be able to calm it down with sandpaper. All right, I'm gonna take some cocoa. And I'm gonna paint this door white, all of it. But these little things here are gonna be brown. I'm even gonna paint that little piece going across brown, I believe. Because that would look kind of dumb now that I think about it. So, I'm just gonna paint this brown. Try my best not to get down into the white area where I'm gonna paint it white. And then I'll do some shading and highlighting on there, and it'll just make it look a little different. And I'm just gonna paint these trunks with cocoa as well. And then for the roof and the door, I'm going to use a color called Warm White. And honestly, I'm putting it on splotchy. I don't foresee myself putting that sealing wax on there. But I do want it to look a little weathered as well. So I don't care if the grain's showing through. So, I mean, this roof looks a little dirty, and that's okay, because the grain of the wood is showing through. So I think it just has to be a personal preference. I will take a brush and go up a little bit better. next to where those little things are going to glue on. So I don't know if you can tell in the camera. I mean, I can see the grain of the wood coming through, and that's just giving it a real rustic, weathered feel. I might maybe sand it a little bit, but I mean, and by using the warm white, it's not in your face. It's kind of dull. It's a warm white. It's more calm. So I don't know if you can tell that in the camera or not at all. All right. So I think I'll take some milk chocolate. I'm trying to do just a little bit of shading. Just to try and, what I want to do is separate this little board. So hopefully this will be a dark enough shading color. If not, I'll have to find something else. That looks like it's going to be pretty good. So then what I'm going to try and do is go on each side of here. It'll just make it a little bit more distinct. Hopefully. If not, I'll use a darker color. I had too much paint on my brush. And I'm gonna need to wait on that one area because it's too close. I do think I want to maybe do some asphalt or something, darken it up a little bit. So I think I'll do that. I just want that a little bit darker, a little bit more distinct. Because I'm not going to do any type of staining. I mean, you could take, maybe I will. I'm gonna take some sand gray. And kind of go in the corners here of these little slats. See if I can get a little color in there. I don't know if you'll see it all that well or not. I just feel that when you take the time and do detailed work, you just end up getting a nicer finished product. So I'm actually going to switch to a slate gray to darken it up. I want it very minimal. And I knew I was going to do more detailed work on this particular design. If you've seen my Farm Fresh ones and the Halloween ones, those are really quick, easy paints. Because I did no shading or highlighting whatsoever. So when you don't do detailed work, everything goes faster. Okay, good enough. All right. All right, I'm going to lightly sand over this, but I'm not doing it on the surface. Okay, so as you can see, it kind of mellows it out a little bit, kind of calms it down. So let's take this and let's just see. Hey, Eileen. Sorry I didn't catch you. I hope you are doing well down in Florida. I'm just gonna go across. With the grain. And you, like, see how when I'm going into that, I get a big glob. That's why you want to, like, take it off, because you get a big glob and you end up, like, with way too much. So make sure you do that when you first start off. And I actually still have some on my napkin, so I dip back into that. But that just calms it down, it darkens it. And I think I'm gonna go for it on here. I'm just gonna lightly sand just to smooth it out. And I'm not even going to, I just want to be careful because this is breakable. I'm going to use a sanding stick. See what I can get away with. If I bust it, I can always cut another, but I don't want to do that. All right, and I'm just going to use what I have on here and kind of just lightly go over it. And it just makes it like more of a brownish, creamish. And while I'm at it, I'm just gonna lightly go over this as well. And I did not dip my sponge back in. And if I dip it back into anything, it's gonna be onto my napkin. So it just takes that white and calms it down. Makes it more rustic feeling. Alright. Alright, I do want a dry brush highlighting. I don't know how well it's gonna go, but I think what I'll do though, I will sand these first. That way I'm not sanding off the highlighting. But what it does is it puts some lines through it because I'm going with the green. So I'm just gonna dry brush some celery green. Just trying to lighten up the edges, and I don't know if it's going to be noticeable or not, to be honest with you. Just to kind of create like a little frost look on these trees, like it looks like there's snow. Because if you remember correctly, when I did that on the last one, it just kind of added some depth. when I glue these on top of one another. And like I said, once I put that wax on, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to sand these edges, though. Because that's just an accident waiting to happen. It'll probably break these off. So, good enough. Gonna sand the edges of these. I don't know if you can see. Nope. I'm just trying to make them look a little bit weathered, worn. All right. And I'm really rubbing that stuff off. And I'm kind of just like pouncing it on. And if you feel like you got too much, take your finger and kind of rub it in. All right. Well, let's see about these trees. Now this one tree got a little bit darker than what I would have liked. I'm not putting a whole lot on because I don't really want the color to change a whole lot. And something else you can do, because I'm going to glue, you know, the smaller trees on, start there and then rub over. That way the majority of that wax is on an area that you're not going to see. That's what I would do. And then something you can do too is if, you know, you get too much and your highlighting's not showing enough, you can go back and dry brush. But to me, there's plenty. I'm going to actually put more right in there so it's a little bit darker. So this wax is going to be my shadowing a little bit. And it's probably hard to tell in the camera. All right, so I'm going to empty my water because it's pretty nasty. And I will be back shortly. Really, all we have to do is the bow, the wreath, and the letters. And I'm kind of thinking I'm going to maybe paint these letters maybe light avocado so it's a different shade of green. That's what I'm thinking. Same as the wreath. And then I've got to paint this bow, and I think I'm just going to, normally I would do shading and highlighting on it. I don't think I'm going to do that this time around. I do need to take off more than what I did. Just got to be pretty careful with these pretty delicate areas. Good enough. All right. I will be back shortly. I hope you stick around. I'm going to use light avocado. I'm going to paint this wreath light avocado and see how much of a difference it really is compared to the avocado. Seems pretty significant. Okay, so I think I'm going to paint the lettering as well, the light avocado. It is so humid today. Holy smokes. Something I might do. Now, with this, you can put the bow wherever you want. You can put it up top. You can put it on the bottom. There's no right or wrong. I left it that way intentionally. And I did not put any score marks on the barn because you might want it up higher, you might want it lower, you might not want it on there at all. So I always like to give options with my designs. That way you folks can decide exactly the elements you want. So that's just what I like to do. We'll let that dry pretty good. And while it's doing that, maybe I'll start gluing some of this together. That way it dries pretty good, because this is about done. And we're at maybe an hour and a half. I don't know. Even though I did a little bit of shading and highlighting, it was not real time consuming. Whoa, that's too much paint and glue. Way too much glue. That's why it's moving around, slip sliding away. Okay, let's see which one goes where. Because there is a right way and a wrong way for these trees. I'm just going to put it on the tree. And be careful when pressing down, because these things will slide on you. Like that one did, but I was able to fix it. Okay, let's go ahead and sand this wreath. Now, something you can do is, if you wanted to put some berries on this, take a stylus and dot them. I'll see what I think after the fact, after I put my bow on. I may not want to do that at all. Let's see. And I'm just going to go across these lightly. I'm going to take that sanding stick and just go around in certain areas, take off some of the wood. The paint, when I mean... Kind of just has to be a personal preference how much you take off. This letter's a little bit too close. I kind of just try to, when I'm doing this, focus like on corners and rounded parts, the end of a letter, you know, like the C, the end of the E. That's what I like to do. Kind of just has to be a personal preference. Okay, now I know that I don't want a whole lot of this coloring on. So I'm gonna hopefully get it on there pretty light, but I definitely want it around those edges so it darkens them up a little bit. See, look at all that wax. So that's why you want to dab it off onto a paper towel or a napkin or whatever. And I'm just kind of like dabbing it on. And the fact of the matter is, it's going to make it look dirty. And I'm okay with it, because that's what I'm after. I want it real old and weathered. This lettering is far from looking perfect. So there's a slight variance, not a whole lot. And I knew this tiny piece was going to be a bummer to glue, because it is tiny. So for my recommendation, if you have really tiny pieces, get yourself some of these tweezers. I got them off of Amazon. I got like 6. I've only went through 1 pair. As you can see over time, glue does build up on the ends, you know, the tips of them, and I don't know if you can peel it off or not, you know, probably. But I got plenty. They'll last me forever. I paid like $7. So I'm thinking, with this wreath hanging down, putting the bow up top. That's what I think. And part of me kind of, I don't know, I'm not going to put any berries on it. You know, if you go like this, then it's pretty low. But I think if you have it up top like this, with just a little bit of that green showing, you can drop it down, and I think that's a good fit. So that's how I'm going to do this. I just want a little bit of green showing, not a whole lot. I'm loving this. Something else you can do, I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about it, is splattering this before I glue it. I don't think I'll splatter the letters, but I think splattering this barn is really a good idea. but just very country, so primitive, so rustic. It's just, I absolutely love this technique and using this stuff. It just gives me the look that I want. Just love it, love it, love it. So let me move some things aside. I really do think I'm going to splatter this off camera. Just something tells me it needs just a little bit of snow. But look at this. I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it screams Farmhouse Christmas. And I think there's enough, it's hard to tell on the camera, but honestly, there's enough variance between the two greens. You could even do a lighter green. So I just want to put this lettering on here so you can see. I'll glue it off camera because I am going to splatter and lightly splatter. That way you got an idea of what it really looks like when it's all said and done. I just think putting the splatter on the lettering would take away from the really old weathered look. And granted, these things aren't lined up and spaced correctly and they're whatever, but you get a gist. You get an idea. I'm messing them up as touching them. Oh well. So that kind of gives you an idea. I love it. I thought about doing the red, but I figured if I did the red, it would be too much. So I am going to spatter the barn and the trees and leave this lettering go. So that's it. And it took me an hour and 45 minutes to paint it all. It's not bad. If I wouldn't have done any of the highlighting and shading, it would have taken less time than that. The most time-consuming part is the background and getting it just so, and the sanding. The sanding takes some time. Other than that, it's a quick paint. It's easy, easy, easy. So, thank you for joining me. You folks have a wonderful day. You never know, I might be back on. I've got, oh my gosh, so many more of these to paint. And I'm hoping to get everything listed next weekend. And I might actually offer some of these painted, so I need to see how to price those. So, you have a wonderful Saturday. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.